Hi guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We help Muslims and non-Muslims alike to understand and handle Islam in the 21st century. We consider ourselves to be decent human beings, so we condemn categorically any abuse, oppression, misogyny, slavery, violence, anything like that. We do embrace, however, free speech and also criticism, even if it is directed at us, if it is factual and constructive criticism. We focus on Islam exclusively. So if you're curious about anything Islam, you've come to the right place. Now, we don't attack, which is aggressive, destructive, and antagonistic, neither Islam nor Muslims. We ask questions and show facts. We refute false claims and present the reality of Islam, which is political Islam. We inspect, investigate, research, analyze, and then report and critique on Islam, the ideology, not the people. Now, the live stream goes to YouTube and Facebook, and there are three ways that you can participate in this. Either you join us in the live written chat, you can join the panel during the live show, or later on watch and comment the archive. And anyone can join to comment, critique, contribute, or question. This is not a Dawah channel with censorship. Don't go to Patreon, don't go to PayPal. Everything here is free. The way we work is usually we have some news, some Krazy Komments, a segment where we go and read the Koran, and then a discussion on the theme of the month, followed by integrating the live chat, ending with a Hadith of the week. And there, if this is not enough Islam for you, there's still the Discord channel where you can discuss with us without anything being recorded. See you later and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show. Well, there you go. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. This is a new try. I tried, something else, trying a more, formal approach, but this is only 2 minutes long because before I just had bullet points, which I was mixing up, and you will hear that every time I do the this thing where we declare where we stand, what we are, and who we are not. And what I used to do is just mix it up, so it was always different. So now I'm just sort of giving a one standard version where I'm not sure whether this is the right approach, whether it's too boring if we do this in the beginning, but I think it's important that we do declare what we're doing, how we're in one. Now, let me know if one version is better than the other, because I have no idea. With that, welcome to the panel. Welcome Rob, Smartcat, Moose, and here is Thunder. Let's take it clockwise. Hello, Rob.
Evening, everybody. Good evening, Stops, and to the rest of the panel. Hope everybody's well, and let's have an interesting show.
And welcome to Moose Staff.
Hello, everybody. This is me, Moose.
Yeah, you look the part. Hello, Smartcat. How are you doing tonight?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me just fine?
You always sound like you're speaking in a cathedral or something.
Okay, I'll try to fix it.
No, you can't fix that. It's just the environment that you're in. It's just if you are so filthy rich that you can live in a mansion with the huge buildings, then what can we do? And of course we have Allah Gorical. Hello, Thunder, and you're giving us wonderful feedback.
Allegorical.
Allegorical,
Okay,
He's
well,
in the cave of Hira.
this is a rather tasteful response I've come to expect on a Friday night. Actually, I've taken this week's pseudonym from a certain Bulgarian that I work with at the bank. He started, after listening to the several shows that we do every week, he started to read the Koran last week. He's got a degree in creative writing, and I think he's reading the Quran to find some inspiration for some of his new books. And boy, is he finding stuff. I get a text every 5 minutes or something that he's read in the Quran that he just can't believe that's actually considered to be holy and religious text. Anyway,
Well,
good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's okay, and hello to the panel.
Hello.
And welcome to the chat. Welcome to the people listening live. And like I said, if you have questions, just ask away. What we do like to do this at the end when there will be some try. At least I always try and do this, get some interaction going. And this week I actually was a good boy. I looked at the last week's archive and I commented on there. And speaking of creative, I don't know, this is something that I found really amazing, where somebody went to a court in the States and said, we would like to complain about not having access to the counting of the votes. And the judge said, well, why are you complaining? Did you have people there? Yes. And he says, well, how many were there? And the lawyer says, well, it's a non-zero number.
That's a very interesting argument.
I found that so creative. A non-zero number. If you really want to get out of something, a non-zero number is actually quite a genius argument to bring up. It's quite funny. Okay. Give me feedback in the chat or in comments. I wonder if you like this beginning, which is monotonous and static, but it's only 2 minutes. All right, we don't waste so much time because sometimes when there was something I used to ramble a bit. Let us know what you think. Now it's also the end of Diwali now, the Hindu festival, where they do all sorts of rituals. This is like Hajj and everything, what normally goes on in 1 month of Ramadan and Umrah and everything wrapped into 5 days. So they managed that and nothing major happened. Then one thing, there's 2 items I want to point out today. One is an article in The Guardian. I don't know if you want the link. Let me copy this and put this into the chat just in case you're doubting and thinking that I'm making this up. This is the link to a Guardian article which says Europe's Muslims are European. Stop outsourcing their plight to foreign leaders. Now it says that for EU leaders to seek solutions abroad to end prejudice against millions of their own citizens is insulting and meaningless. Now I don't understand that. We have the problem that a lot of Muslims come here and because of the I don't know, what you want to call it, the way that Islam is organized, of course they want to change it. Of course they want to implement Sharia. That is the goal of every Muslim, to have Sharia. Well, most of them anyway. And now people are saying, well, how can we handle Muslims? How are they handled in other countries? What is the format of other countries? So they're trying to learn from other countries to find out how they can treat Muslims in Europe, because there's a minority of Muslims that totally agree and embrace the European freedoms and constitutions because they are in direct contradiction to the Koran and to the Human Rights Declaration of Islam. So this is a huge problem. And now this Guardian article saying, well, no, you can't do that. They need to be integrated. Well, how do you integrate people that are not willing to integrate? So they carry on saying the rhetoric over the alleged Islamization of Europe is fired up by xenophobic and populist parties. Well, no, it is not. This is something that is happening. I see it. I see it here every day, where more and more women are running around with burqas or niqabs or something. I'm not even talking about the hijab anymore. On the other hand, you have female Muslims who are merely wearing a headscarf which is covering half of the hair. Like, I don't know if you've seen in Iran, women love doing that. They love to provoke, and they have half the hair sticking out, which they're not allowed to do, but they do anyway, just to, to round up this view.
Yeah, I've seen that in Iran. I've actually seen that in Iran. Like, it's almost, the hijab is almost off, if anything. So
yeah, it's quite funny because they're always niggling, they're always sort of provoking. Well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? It's only half the hair, And then this thing, because normally what you have to cover is hair and neck, and now I've seen female Muslims here who just sort of wear a sort of a funny turban thing, leaving neck and everything exposed. So, there's a huge difference here. But unfortunately, they are the minority. The majority here are still more conservative, and this is what Mustafa, I think, was referring to, are more conservative than the women in Iran, who are trying to get out of it, and here the women are trying to get into it. This is the funny thing.
And the funny thing is, and this is not only with Iranians, but also with Pakistanis. And a friend of mine were having a discussion just last weekend that we have so many Pakistanis who actually smoke cannabis, drink alcohol back in Pakistan, but suddenly when they come to Western country like USA, Canada, UK, suddenly they're in religious garb and wrapped in white sheets and black sheets, and it's like, what the hell happened? What is making you gravitate towards your own faith? You didn't even bother about it back home.
Can I respond to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
From my own personal experience, I feel that when you're living in a Muslim country such as Pakistan and Iran and such places, you actually know what Islam is. So you do tend to get away with it a little, not much, a little. But when you come over to the Western world, there is a sort of like, because it's been inbred in the Muslim culture, even within Muslims that grew up in Europe, that it's a very us and them mentality. So they succumb to the pressures, or they take on the Islamic ideology because it's become a default in their programming, as it was from when they've been brought up, that when you go to the Western world or Europe and America and such, you're actually going to an environment where everybody's against you. Now, that's not the case, but that's what you've been brought up to believe. So I personally have always seen it as that many people, particularly women, take on that identity. Not because they believe it, because where they come from, their actions prove that they don't believe it, but because there is that perception that because you're a Muslim from a Muslim background, from a Muslim country, there's a prejudice, or there's going to be a prejudice against you. When the reality is, you've actually grown up with a prejudice placed inside you, or you've been brought up with an indoctrinated prejudice against anything that's non-Muslim.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with the us versus them. Like, there is, even when I first came to Canada, and this is from personal experience, there was always that, we Muslims should do this. And this common rhetoric, and being a Shia Muslim myself, that's where I was able to catch it. I was like, this is mostly coming from Sunni Muslims. And with Shia Muslims, we just do our own thing and don't bother anybody. But with Sunni Muslims, I've seen this behavior very often, that, it's us versus them, we're being targeted. And with Shia Muslims, it's like, we've been persecuted by you guys. So the
thing is, they've created, even in areas in the world where that prejudice against the Muslim community exists, that prejudice has actually been a byproduct of Muslim reaction to the West. So they live in pockets, they're very insular. They themselves have got this hatred and prejudice against, say, the non-Muslim indigenous community that they've moved to. So they've created the schism. So the backlash is nothing more than the schism they've created. And another thing that the Muslim world do as well when they're living in the West, they too suffer from the atrocities that you find, say, in non-religious communities or pseudo-Christian, pseudo-Jewish, pseudo-atheist or whatever communities, right? For instance, rape and wife beating and alcoholism, things like that. That happens in the Muslim community. Only in the non-Muslim community, those communities are prepared to do something about it. They'll go to the police. They have groups against, say, these violence attacks. Whereas the Muslim community dare not mention any of this to the Western world, and because it wants to have this image of being pious and pure and clean and morally, spiritually, intellectually and such above everybody else, because that's what the Islamic religion brainwashes you into believing that's what you are. But the reality is, when these things take place in the Muslim community, you will not hear about it, or very rarely, because it's very insular and it brings shame on the community. And if you start bringing that shame in, then what you're doing, you're basically behaving like the kuffar, so on and so forth. We all know what happens after that. So that's my take on the matter.
Smart
Okay, I
cat,
just want
something
to
to say?
make a quick comment here because I just saw this. Our panel indeed is a wild mixture because we have a Muslim, we have two ex-Muslims, we have two atheists. So this is quite funny how, and I think it's great that we can show that people of different opinions and different I don't know, not I wouldn't call it ideologies, but different approaches to certain aspects in life can sit together and communicate and have a dialogue and can discuss things in common. And each one is allowed to have their own opinion and everyone can voice it. And I think this is what we should be seeing. This is where we see that we are able to integrate, we are able to come together and communicate with each other instead of hitting each other over the head. And this is the thing that I would like to see more and more, building bridges, not walls. So once again to the panel, thank you very, very much for being here. And I cannot express this so much enough, how much I enjoy having this and how much I appreciate it. So that's it. Okay, let me get on with this because otherwise I'm going to start crying here. The rhetoric, no, sorry. Now, what they also bring up is they say recognizing, as Angela Merkel did in 2018, that Islam is part of modern Europe. Now, she was criticized immediately because it was something that was said in Germany, which immediately backfired because they had huge demonstrations. They had, this Muslim mowing down people at a Christmas market and during New Year's Eve, people going to Cologne and raping women and all sorts of things. This was crazy. So this immediately backfired because we have the problem that a lot, I'm not saying all, and unfortunately though there are some who simply cannot accept the way of life, this freedom or the freedoms that we have in Europe, and they're trying to restrict it. So unfortunately that is the case. Then they say that Macron's interview with the Arab news channel Al Jazeera, in which he explained his respect for Islam as well as his plans to even appoint an envoy for the Muslim world, are beside the point. How can anybody say that? Why is it besides the point if the guy that is being criticized for taking a positive stance for the freedoms and saying, no, we do not accept Islamism? How can somebody say that now he explains his respect for Islam as such, not Islamism, mind you, Islam. And he even goes and tries to, extend an olive branch. And they say, no, fuck you, it's beside the point.
Yeah, I think what's the bigger disappointment is that most Muslims are shouting the Quran is Islamophobic and all these nasty things, but then they don't. But a man just got beheaded by a fanatic. They even forget that fact. And what's interesting is that I think Austria very recently took a step against political Islam. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so this was a very interesting development, and even that was met with criticism. And also, you are funny. Also, you mentioned Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera has even there was even and I think there's a blogger who was criticized by Al Jazeera Arabia or in the Middle East, said that he was promoting Israel when in reality he kind of explains that no, I'm just promoting dialogue between the two sides. And basically, Al Jazeera in Arabia, like the Arabian Peninsula versus Al Jazeera in the West, are two completely different propaganda machines. So this was very interesting.
Yeah. And we see immediately the example of what I'm saying because here we have Benny who is doing exactly what I said, putting up walls and not building bridges. So it's like on cue. Anyway, they end with anti-Muslim racism and hate rights record as it prepares to host the G20 summit beginning next month is up for discussion. Now, because of COVID, the G20 meeting is not a carefully orchestrated display, but it's on the net. It's a virtual meeting. And Human Rights Watch launched a social media campaign, which is G20 Saudi Arabia, to call attention to the fact that Saudi Arabia's human rights record is really, really atrocious. And now the funny thing is that KSA, Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is really struggling. They introduce taxes and whopping taxes at that, but they're hitting the poor harder than the rich as usual, because the king the king authorities, or whatever you want to call them, don't want to antagonize the rich people who are funding them, because they're running out of money, because the oil prices, and I think it's 83 or something percent of the GDP is oil income, and that's it. And since this is so low at the moment, they're really struggling. And now they're facing a German arms ban in light of Yemen. Now, the problem is that this has been in the works for a couple of years already, and now the German public is saying, no, look, don't do this, because they are attacking, they're using our weapons that we build to fight Yemen, and we can't do that. And the problem is, and this is the consequence, that this affects the arms race with Iran, because we need to remember that there's this problem between Iran and KSA. So.
And what's funny is that Saudi Arabia has been using, and for a long time has been using, Pakistani soldiers to actually fight on their behalf in Yemen. Apparently, there's an international deal between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Pakistani military that, Pakistani military is going to send soldiers to fight for their masters in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, let us quickly jump into the crazy comments, which I will do like this so that you can read them. No, this is the hadith that we're going to do at the end of the week. Let me start here. This is something that I don't know why people react like that. Now, unfortunately, David Wood is seen as an enemy of Islam because he critiques it. He doesn't insult. I mean, he's much gentler than I am. And yet he is seen as an enemy because I think, because he's a Christian, I think he's double dangerous compared to an atheist or something. But they really hate the poor guy. And I think David is actually quite a gentle person. I mean, there was a recent discussion on the historicity of Muhammad between David Wood and J. Smith, or I should say Dr. David Wood and Dr. J. Smith, because they both have this academic title. So they both have this PhD title. And it was quite funny to see that David Wood, with his gentle approach and his reasoning, and saying, yeah, but hang on, we need to look at this, and we need to, and J. Smith just went, doof, doof, doof. No, you can't because of this. No, you can't because of this. This is this, this is this. And that was the end of the discussion. So it was amazing to see the difference between two Christian apologists and their attitudes toward an argument. That was quite amazing. But still, people hate him, and he's been blocked left, right, and center. I don't know if this was a shurut. I have no idea if this was. It sounded real to me, but I mean, it could well be. I don't know if this was just makeup or something, but they came to different conclusions. So, anyway, I've been told that I should be banned because caricatures are not allowed. So if I use an avatar, which is a caricature, my whole content, everything that I stand for, is void and meaningless because I have a caricature as an avatar. This is how desperate they're now getting. They can't find any other reason to ban or block me, so they're using stupid things like this. And I have not seen anywhere in any rule or something that caricatures are not allowed. I can understand that they're not supposed to be sexual and things like that, but come on, caricature. And I've got people asking me, who is this in your avatar? Who is this picture of? And I said, this is not a real guy. This is somebody's imagination that he drew a picture of a face. And it's grossly exaggerated. I mean, it looks like an upside down penis with the balls on top. And I don't know, do I need to show? No, I'm going to show this. Anyway, so this is now, I thought this was quite childish. Here you can see it on the top left. Okay, so this is the one where I colored the turban green and the shirt a little bit of a gray so that it shows up. And
Oh, it's this one. I was thinking more the Imam Ali one that you had before, but it's this one. Okay, so
this is this one. Yeah, okay.
uh,
It's quite stupid. Anyway, so if I go and say something, then I'm not allowed to. I'm immediately placed in timeout because they can't handle this, even though I'm just asking questions. This is one that Rob found. Rob, do you want to comment on this?
Da, da, da. Oh, yeah, I think so. There was, I was on one of the Muslim Discord servers, just chatting to them a bit in text. And I wanted to actually, and I've got a few crazy comments. I'll bring it in after your stops that'll relate to this.
Okay.
And they made a claim, and I said, okay, well, let's chat about it on the voice chat. No. You've got to counter the claim. I make a claim, you've got to counter it. And I'm trying to explain to them, no, that's not how rational conversation works. You make a claim, you give your reasons why, and then I will critique that or bring reasons for why, some other reasons why I think it's not true. And so this particular server, we went back and forth a little bit, and the server owner eventually sort of popped in, and we went back and forth a little bit, and he then asked, where did I get the link for the server? And I said, the Interfaith One God. And 10 seconds later, I was banned. And then one of the other guys who was still on the server happened to find out that it's because he thought that the atheists had been sent there by an atheist server. He didn't stop at any point to ask, hey, what server is that? It's in fact a Muslim server. And they have a list of servers you can join in their partnerships channel. And so I clicked on a few of those and joined them. They've got a lot of barriers to entry, right? You've got to tell them all this information and whatever the other cases may be, right? So unlike ours where you can join, and if you misbehave really badly, we'll get rid of you. These guys have got these, this gatekeeping system. And so, immediately I got banned. So this was part of that, and I'll read you a few more after that.
Well, I'm not allowed to say anything on there. The funny thing is that you can, if you join a voice chat, I'm allowed to do this, and I embarrass them, and I'm still being attacked now. I'm still being chastised on one video where I always get these messages. They really hate this. They really hate being shown that there is a mistake and they can't do anything about it. Amazing.
Amazing, but not surprising.
Not surprising. Yeah, but they have.
So this was the guy. So there we go. This was the guy,
brilliant. Right?
Yeah. So this guy said, "Can I invite him back? I'm waiting for irrefutable proof." I said to him, "I've got irrefutable proof the Quran is mistaken." And this was the guy that actually banned me, and this was his server, by the way. Ironic. Islamic
This
Defense
is the one I'm talking
server.
to.
So the way
this Islamic Defense, yeah.
Yeah,
This is
so
the
this
one who's hitting on me.
So this Islamic Defense, as I say, irony in the case, the defense is we'll block you. By the way, you guys know I don't swear and curse and so forth. I'm not as stringent as some of my colleagues. But because I told him that I got it from another server, which he didn't ask about, by the way, assuming it was an atheist server, that was the ban. And so don't bother. There's no irrefutable proof. He's going to talk about the inheritance again. So obviously, these guys sent me videos that other Muslims, it seems like they all go to one place and all get the same information because they all send the same video. And I asked them before I even look at it, because I've seen it before, so I know what the picture looks like and the timings and so forth. So I asked them, have you watched this? And if so, can you summarize it and tell me why you think it's correct? Right, this separates the people from, I'm just going to send you something because I have no clue what you're talking about. And I'm just going to send you something there to deflect from this and not say, hey, I'm clueless here. And I said to them, yeah, this is wrong. So this guy obviously did that. So that's where this comes from.
Yeah. Okay, next one for you.
So this was Stops' thing, obviously, about the single statement in the Quran. I do think we've got to tweak that a bit, Stops. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. The way you phrase it. I think we've just won. Should I ban or kick him now, etc.? Now let's have some fun. I have an exam tomorrow. Good luck. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So,
Are we both clicking on the same thing at the same
sorry,
time?
you go ahead there. Just bring yours back to big screen, to main screen there. Oh, did you disconnect the share screen now? Oh, he's dropped himself. There we go.
I kicked myself now, or what?
I saw you kicked yourself there. Okay, there we go, the big screen. So there we go. So that's the same server. So if you want to go to the Islamic Defense server on Discord, prepare to go through a long process. Some of the other guys said they had to listen to some sermon or something and all these questions to be asked. So obviously now they're very cautious, but they want to defend Islam, presumably in an echo chamber. I guess that's what Islamic defense means to a few of these Muslims. Again, we're not going to accuse all Muslims of this. We've got people like SmartCat who's prepared to come here, but a few of these guys love the echo chamber, but they want to defend it. When your echo sounds good to your ears, maybe you're deluded into thinking you're defending it. Against what? Only those deluded fellows could tell us. But even then, they battle to actually say anything coherent, as we've seen. And I'll show you a few in a moment.
Smart Cat?
No, just when Rob was explaining the characteristics of the server, he was reminding me of a story where if you can't discuss things, it will quickly devolve into violence. Because violence is just another way of discussing things, like see who's right in the battlefield. So I'm just remembering a few scholars that got persecuted in their lifetime in Islamic history, like Al-Kindi and Ibn Arabi, Ibn Rushd. They all got one way or another silenced by caliph or religious authority or religious judge. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's something that I think is a branch of Muslim society. There's
they're not all like you, right?
No, there's a Well, and the good thing is they're not all the same. I mean, not all Muslims act like that, but this is a characteristic. A characteristic. I mean, throughout our history, even our greatest scholars, the ones that we respect the most, have been silenced in their life one way or another.
Yeah, but the thing is, they were prepared to tackle this. They were prepared to think about this. They were prepared to take it on and give it a whirl and look at it from an intellectual point of view. Here, if you look at this comment, now remember, I asked them, can you provide a single statement from the Quran that is verifiably correct? And they couldn't.
But you didn't say verifiably there, Stops, and I think you need to highlight that. That's the point I'm saying, right?
Here, no, not here, because here this is just the summary. Because my normal statement is, Smart Cat is coming. Then I need to do this again to get my... Okay, so the way that I phrase it is, can you provide a single statement from the Quran that is verifiably correct? Okay, this is what I normally do. Because correct is able, but I do stress it usually. I don't always, but usually I do. But they couldn't. So I summarized it to make it sure what I am talking about, that I'm not talking about inheritance. I'm not talking about the expansion of the universe. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm saying you cannot provide except this is crazy. And then
the reality that does match. So, the sky is blue, let's just say, if there were something like that. Are you going to accept that, or are you going to, is the point to be ultimately that, hey, can you demonstrate that Muhammad or that God said this to Muhammad, not that it's in the Quran and some human wrote it, because they might find something that matches reality. But that's why I say that the verifiably is the part to get clear with them, what you're going to accept, if there's anything. If you're never going to accept anything, then obviously they wouldn't bother, presumably.
Okay, the point that I'm trying to make here is, can you think about what it says in the Quran, and are you able to take that and compare that to and with reality? That's all I'm trying to do. If somebody comes, now, I've had this for 8 years. Nobody has managed to tell me anything, not a single statement in the Quran, and I don't know of any statement that I would be able to verify to show that this is correct. So that's all I'm trying to do. But nobody so far can do this because they are not geared to go down that road where they have to think for themselves. And this is why so far nobody has said this. I agree with you, there can be a statement, sky is, if it says in the Quran, sky is blue, then this is correct. I can verify that. The point that I'm trying to make is, show me that the Quran says sky is blue, and number two, now show me in reality that the sky is blue. So it's a two-step process.
Yeah, but also, okay, so you're not looking for historically verifiable that in fact it was God who said this to Muhammad and Muhammad did this.
No.
You're just looking for a statement that matches reality that can be demonstratable.
This is
Okay,
not
so
against
that's the
the
part to make
scientific
clear.
miracle claims.
Okay, but that's yeah.
You know,
I'll give it
that's,
in 2 words. 2 words. Dul Qarnayn.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's nothing correct. It's not correct.
That's the point.
Yeah, but the point that I'm trying to make is I'm not looking for any verification of any scientific miracle claim or anything like that. No, I'm going in general. Give me anything in the Quran that is correct. And so far, nobody has been able to do that. So, all right, then the last one. Can somebody explain this?
Okay, I'll just read it. The truth will own up, always false, will not. What is this?
Okay.
This reminds me of this is when I said this is the language of my people. It reminds me of one of those, those creepy Pakistani Indian guys and the language they use. So I'm like,
I thought this was funny.
Is Mustafa very soft or his mic is not very good?
If
where is
I
this from? Where is this picture from?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
I don't know where I
Muslim.
found it.
So hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Okay. Where is this? 020-3904. What area code is that?
London?
Is it?
Is it? I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember where I found this. For me, the important thing is there is such a thing. Have you been a victim of Islamophobic hate crime? You know?
The thing is, that's so ambiguous now because the word
Yeah.
hate has lost its meaning. So when you use the
Yes.
term hate crime, what exactly are you meaning? Because it's just subjective now. You know, a look in the wrong direction now can be inferred as being, some form of hatred because you've looked in a negative manner or what's perceived to be in a negative manner, even though the expression on your face may well be something negative, but that could be down to you just having a bad day, not necessarily because the person in front of you is being offensive to you or has offended you in any way. So we'll dwell. How can we say? We're getting into the realms now where Islam has lost every possible argument it has. This is the last stand that Islam has now. It's lost every other form of argument.
Like
There's a challenge here in the chat, by the way, guys. You said you were going to invite me on. That's what Thinking Clearly tells Maverick. And Maverick responds, I will, but you won't have the balls to join. I know your ilk. So he is now not inviting us because he knows we will not come, but he threatened that he was going to go and destroy us within 2 weeks. And I think that was about 6 months ago. Maverick, my goodness. Okay, I just saw this out of the corner of my eye. I thought this was quite funny. For me, the sad part is that this exists, that you have an Islamophobia response unit. Stand up to it. Now, the thing is, I can feel offended if I see the abuse of another human being being put into black bags. I feel offended. I feel terrible. I feel like really physically ill if I see a woman completely covered up and completely shut away from the normal world. And then they tell me, have you been a victim of hate crime or something? That is a hate crime in my eyes. You must hate somebody. You must hate 50% of the population to expect them to be hidden away like that. That's crazy. That's really, really crazy.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. When it comes to today's culture in the West, a lot of these things, these so-called hate crimes or Islamophobia or homophobia or racist, um, anti-racism initiatives, they're very subjective. I mean, if we were living 100 years ago, and let's say our governments in the West legislated discrimination, for example, no gays in the bureaucracy, no Muslims in airports, or something of that nature, then there would be a legal argument to make that people are being discriminated against in a legal fashion, in an institutional fashion, being discriminated under the guise of law and order, so to speak. But for me, what I'm seeing, this is a common narrative. This is like in the same realm as stop fat shaming people. This is like a social cause. It's not really like a legal cause or it's. I think this is what it is. I think the same people who come up with anti-homosexual campaigns are the same guys that were hired to do this anti-Islamophobia response unit picture right here. I mean,
That's crazy.
that's what it seems like to me. Because I don't think Muslims in the West are that sophisticated to convince governments to do such a thing, to dedicate so much. It's one of those cases where we have like a left-leaning liberal advocating for the rights of Muslims, and he just superimposes his ideas that Muslims are being persecuted by other white people, and he's probably going around convincing Muslims that they're victims of hate. And as well, the Islamists in any given jurisdiction would like to play into that and be like, see, people hate us. This white guy is saying it, that people hate us. It must be true, right? So it's like a self-confirming bias. I mean, there's many things to unpack on this thing, but I mean, about the comment that you made, Stops, about you hate to see half of the population being forced in black paper bags. I guess you were talking about the niqab. I understood that, but I mean, there's only a few jurisdictions in the world where the niqab is enforced. I mean, I think Saudi Arabia is like enforces it, and maybe Afghanistan, Taliban, and maybe to some extent Iran. I know they enforce the hijab, but not the niqab. And there's other places. I mean, like throughout the world that has these things. But I mean, if you remember your history, I mean, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, and he started this trend of forcing people what to wear and what not to wear. He banned the fez and he banned the niqab, and he dismantled the caliphate system. And people who advocate for mandatory hijab for women, to legislate that into law, these are Islamists, and they're more or less. I see them as a reactionary to the secularization of the Middle East and the Muslim world. So I mean, I think they seen the annals of history say, well, we were in Turkey. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk forced women not to wear the niqab and prohibited the fez for some strange reason. I think the fez is a lovely little hat, but he didn't like it. He made it illegal to wear the fez in Turkey. I think they've seen that, and then they're like, maybe this gives us legitimacy to advocate for you have to wear the hijab and the niqab, like enforced by governments and institutions, you know. So, I mean, I don't think that's an Islamic thing. I think it's maybe a perception that it's an Islamic thing. But that's me saying that.
Okay, but I think it is very much an Islamic thing, because this is the problem. Where does Islam, the religion, the spiritual, the God, the prayer, the hope for heaven, salvation, and things like, where does that stop? And where does Islam, the political ideology, start? This is why I'm saying there is no discrimination between the two. Islam is a political ideology which has a God in the middle. And this is the problem, that we see Islam as the source for Sharia. And Sharia is then what demands women cover themselves. This demands that women be obedient to the husband. Sharia demands that the man is the caretaker, the household supplier, and the women have to obey him. This is where it comes from. This is Islam. This is Sharia, and it's based in the Koran and the Sunnah. This is where the whole thing comes from. So you can't say that covering women is not really mandated in Islam. Now, it's not mandated in the Quran. I agree with you. I agree with you that everything is just a matter of interpretation. I totally agree with you. But it is being mandated by Islam, by the powers that be in Islam, whether this is the OIC, whether this is the local governments. This is where this comes from. If you would abandon all this, if you would abandon Islam, do you think any woman will, out of her own free will, run around with a niqab?
Okay, all right. Let me answer that the best way I can. Sharia is like, okay, just say you cut yourself, right? And I come up to you and I say, hey, put a little alcohol, put a Band-Aid on that, and you'll be fine. You won't get an infection. That's what I would say the essence of Sharia, things you should be doing. Now, the should in capital, because if it becomes compulsory, you lose the meaning. It's like putting the horse, it's like putting the cart in front of the horse. It wouldn't make sense. So there's a lot of things in Sharia that people think it's okay. For me, this is what I'm trying to say. I don't understand how governments are supposed to enforce Sharia. Like this is the majority of Sharia is guidelines on how to live a proper, dignified life, according to Islam, or according to the scholars of Islam. Okay, all right.
Okay.
So there has to be, for example, if you live in a society where every single woman is mandated to cover herself from head to toe, it just loses its meaning. All right. There has to be a backdrop where there's variations in dress. There has to be a woman that dresses very modestly and a woman that doesn't dress very modest. So you can compare the two, right? If you live in a society where everybody's in burqas, this is evidently a useless endeavor. Because
can I just interfere on that?
That's what they want.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Islamic heaven has those things that you're talking about, where women are dressed in burqas all the time and they keep their head down. So the image in Allah's heaven is very much the one that you're saying is not practical. And what we've seen is when you look at the Hadith and when you look at the Quran, the role of women, how the teachings of Islam, that is via the Quran and the Hadith, perceive women to be the inheritance law. It takes two women to have the witness of one man. If a woman walks in front of
a good deal,
but the thing is when you add all these things up, and you can turn around and say, well, the Sharia is not this, the Sharia is not that. Is it political? Where does religion cut off and politics and sort of take over, or where does politics take over and religion take control? Thing is, for me, when I being brought up as a Muslim, you formulate all the texts, or you get all the texts, extrapolate all the texts that refer to one subject. And though the subject, the question you're answering or asking rather, may not be specifically answered, you get to understand by looking at all the texts referring to that one subject what the answer likely is to be. So when you look at the Islamic texts about women and covering themselves and things like that, there may not be any specific, oh, she has to wear this kind of clothing, this kind of headscarf or anything like that. That may well be true. But when you look at the text about Allah's heaven and how women to be treated on earth, that a man can have 4 wives and he can beat them, you get to understand then what the role of women are through the context of what the other scriptures teach.
Okay.
And Kat, but Kat, the other thing that I want to point out here, so that people don't get the wrong impression, Sharia does not give women an option. It does not say what we advise is that you do this and this, but it's up to you and you have your own option and your own way of expressing yourself. This is not part of Sharia. Sharia gives you a very, very clear, bandwidth of things that you need to do. The problem is, and here again we agree, that it's down to interpretation. But Sharia does not tell you, well, you don't really have to do that, it's up to you. And then say, well, Ataturk was actually bad because he was the one who actually went and addressed this and made this into law. This is the difference. So Ataturk only did what we are doing today, and that is saying, no, we want people to be part of society, and if you do not do this out of your own accord and go and follow the superstitions, ancient superstitions of people of 1,000 years ago, then we will have to gently nudge you and ban the niqab and ban the burqa. If you want to wear a hijab or something, that's cool, but not the ones which totally shut off women from society. So that's it. Okay, but I don't want to get too much now into the intricacies, because you can go from there off into Sharia and off into other things. But this is just what I find shocking, that this exists. And I just looked it up. This is a British site because it goes to .co.uk. It's an org.uk. So it seems to be called 999 and things like that. This seems to indicate that this is actually a British UK initiative. And they say, we conduct data monitoring on Islamophobia across the country. We use this data to raise awareness about Islamophobia. We work with police and local councils. So this is a group which takes anything. This is exactly what we said earlier. If you give somebody a skew look, this can be identified as Islamophobia, and they then collect this and do this. And this, if anybody wants to look it up, it's MEND, M-E-N-D, mend.org.uk. I mean, this is quite sick in my eyes anyway.
I think to be honest with my counsel and all this, and I'm beginning to think that I might actually sort of like lead it as a campaign, as a if you like, a defense against Islamophobia. I think everybody should have a pocket Quran inside their bag or inside their pocket, so that when they're accused of Islamophobia or anything like that, because that's how it's been interpreted or inferred from what you've said or how you've looked or how you've behaved, just pull open the Quran, cite 98 verse 6. Bob's your uncle. I'm merely reacting because I read that this is what this person believes, because that's what their religion teaches.
Oh, and I just realized that my avatar was changed. I'm using my mother because I was challenged that for the rest of the month I would not be able to put my mother as an avatar, which I'm doing as an expression of free speech. Rob, up to you.
Now let's carry on, Stops. We'll do mine next time. I think it's already 9 o'clock.
Oh, fuck, it's true. Okay, yeah. Then, okay, what happens if I do this? This is just a test. I'm not going to run through this. Can somebody tell me, can you hear this?
Yes.
No.
Wait, can we hear what?
No, we can't.
So you can't hear somebody talking here?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
Okay, then it doesn't make sense. All right, then this doesn't work. Because this is a new feature, And I thought that I can use this and I don't have to go this other way, but then this does not work. Okay, it was worth a try. Or maybe I need to do something, I need to learn something, I don't know. But as of now, we can't. Okay, my God, if we go through the Quran, we will not be able to do anything again. We've talked 1 hour already about the different. Okay, I think we need to restrict the Krazy Komments to 5 or something like this because we're talking. Because there's so many things that you need to talk about. Okay, should we do like 5 sentences of the Quran again?
Sure, go ahead.
Opinions?
Wait, fine. Yeah. Let's go.
All right, then we did up to 25, I think, last time. Okay, it's true that 2 hours of gin and tonic is actually quite tough. Okay, here we go. Doof, 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 doof. There we go. Can everybody read this?
Yes.
Let me make it one size bigger. Okay, now he went all the way back again. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's take 5 sentences from the Quran. We are in chapter 8. We just went where respond to Allah and His Messenger, where we had a discussion last time, how we see that the duo needs to be asked for permission, and if anybody wants to be a good Muslim, they have to go and obey both Allah and His Messenger. 25 in chapter 8. Fear a trial which will not only strike those who have wronged. Allah is severe in penalty. I thought He was all loving and all, no, sorry, not all loving, all merciful, but apparently not.
He's merciful first, and then He's wrathful. Mercy comes first, then the wrath.
Well, here it says Allah is severe in penalty, so doesn't really match. There's a contradiction here somehow, because you can't be both. You can't be severe and then be merciful at the same time. This doesn't work somehow. Then let's go to 26. Oh, by the way, what I'm doing is I'm taking sentences from the Quran and shortening them. I'm just taking the essence of what that sentence says. Okay, so I'm not copying them one to one. This is not usually a copy paste thing, but it is my interpretation, what I see. So this is me providing my own tafsir. So 26, when you were few and weak, He gave you shelter and victory. You should be grateful. Okay, I don't know what this means. When you were few, when there were few Muslims, then He gave you shelter and victory. In other words, what did He do? Did He build houses for Muslims, or was this a Muslim housing project? Or I don't know what this. And victory over what? I mean, this is peaceful. Why should there be victory? It's not a victory, and you should be grateful. Grateful for what? There is no housing project for Muslims, and why should you be grateful for this? I mean, you were built. This God creates everybody, and then creates some enemies of those that He wants to be victorious, and then He says, well, you should be grateful that I have given you victory over those that I created to be non-victorious, and those that are. This is a logical nightmare. Don't betray Allah and His Messenger. How can you betray Allah? How can you betray a God? Yeah, this God created you, knowing in advance what you were going to do. So if He created you, knowing that you will be able to betray Him, then you are more powerful than this Creator. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to betray this God, nor His Messenger. How can I betray His Messenger? He's dead 1,000 years, if He even existed. So this is also a bit stupid. And now it really gets ridiculous. Your property and your children are a test, and Allah has a reward.
This one I found very interesting because, and there's more verses like that in the Quran where the kids and property are put in the same category, and children are seen as property. They're not seen as persons, which I found very interesting.
Amazing.
Well, that's silly. That's the silliest thing ever.
Yeah,
I
no.
agree. That's why I don't get it.
No,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
don't
like
get it.
your children are your property. What's wrong with you?
Okay, go to 29. And okay, fear Allah. Why should you fear Allah if He's merciful? And He will provide a criterion. Now, it took me a long time to find out what this is actually supposed to mean. It's a standard on which a judgment or decision may be based. Okay, so Allah will provide you with something against which a judgment will be, no, based on which a decision may be based. Okay, I don't know what that criterion is. Remove from you your evil deeds and forgive you. Well, hang on. He just said that He is severe in penalty. So if He's severe in penalty, and here He's going to forgive you, why would He have to be severe in penalty if He's going to forgive you anyway? So Allah is the possessor of great bounty. Well, great. So the more you plunder, the more bounty you will get. And then Allah is going to get the bounty. What point is bounty to a God? Why should He possess great bounty? Why would Muhammad have to go and plunder caravans if Allah is the possessor of great bounty and could have given him part of the bounty? Why do we need to struggle at all? Why are there children dying as we speak of hunger when Allah is the possessor of great bounty? Why doesn't He give these children a bit of this bounty? Why are there so many people dying in the Mediterranean because they have absolutely nothing? So they're trying to get to Europe instead of these Muslims being given some of this great bounty. Why doesn't Allah, when He has a reward, why doesn't He give these people some of the reward so that they don't have to go, try and cross the Mediterranean, die in the process? Why? This does not make sense. And then this Quran says that Allah will provide a criterion. When? What is this criterion? When will this happen and what is this going to look like? And then what do I need to do with this and how am I going to process this if all my evil deeds are removed from me anyway and Allah is going to forgive me anyway? Why would I need a criterion for anything? This is nonsense. And then remember how the
Stops. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. You're going real great, but I feel like you're denying reality's multiplicities. You know what I'm trying to say?
No?
There's an element of multiplicity in life, right? There's more
I don't know
than
what that
one
is.
possible. Yeah, but there's more than one possible outcome in every type of person's life, right? There's the good and the
No. No. How is that possible?
bad. I mean, not everybody's made the same, right? Not everybody lives the exact same life. Not everybody experiences the exact same thing, you know?
But
But
Allah has all the knowledge.
But in some ways, we have very similar lives and we will experience very similar things. You know what I'm trying to say?
No. What is the premise?
I feel like you're not, because the way you're reading it sentence by sentence and it's not connecting with you. You know, but maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know, but
No, but
it makes sense to me. I'm sorry, Stops. It makes sense to me. I don't know why it don't make sense to you.
Yeah, but what you are not doing is you're not taking into account the premise here. The premise is that Allah has all knowledge.
Yes, yeah, okay. Allah has all knowledge.
And the pen has already written everything.
Okay.
And the angels have on day 42 already established what will be.
Okay.
Does all that sound familiar?
Yes, I'm just waiting for the punchline.
Okay, now put everything together. Now, if you put everything together, and there's more, okay, but I don't want to spend so much time. If you put all these things together, it means that whatever you do, Allah already knows what you're going to do. So if He is going to remove your evil deeds and He's going to forgive you, Why are you given a criterion against which you will be judged if your evil deeds and everything is going to be forgiven? What is the point? And why are people dying if this Allah has a reward and great bounty? Why doesn't this Allah give the people who are dying this and help these poor people out? Why is it that these people have to live in poverty, their children have to die because they don't have bounty, they don't have reward, they don't have sustenance, they don't have all the things that are promised in the Quran?
But you, or some people do. Some people have sustenance. Some people have security.
Exactly. But why not the
Right?
others?
So
Why not the others?
isn't this a bounty? Isn't if everybody had a bounty, if everybody had the exact same bounty, then that means we have no bounty.
No, I
Right.
didn't
Can
say
I
the
just add
exact
on
same.
there? We find the bounty though as well in this, that in Muhammad's time there was a disproportionate amount of bounty. You had the very wealthy and the very poor, and as Islam has moved forward in time for the past 400 years, we've found that there's a bigger gulf now between the haves and the have-nots, particularly when you consider that they're living on the
Exactly.
land where the oil comes from to make them rich in the first place,
Exactly.
which should really, the wealth should be spread out, because it's not that one person or that one family's oil, it's the oil of the land, like pretty much what Mossadegh wanted to do in Iran when he wanted, it was state and not through some sort of capitalist family gaining all the assets. And not only that, when you look at it from on the whole world scene, it just seems that the kuffar seem to be doing better than what the Muslims are. So Allah's blessed Islam with bounty, but you've got a disproportionate people in poverty and those with wealth. And then when you look at the grand scheme of things, you're finding that the Islamic world is even further pushed into poverty in comparison to with the Western world, which is the land of the kuffar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Correct. And the reanimator is making an excellent point here, because this is an additional one. If Allah is all-knowing, then why do we need an angel on each shoulder scoring us? That's ridiculous. So if you take all these factors together, and then you look at the fact that Thunder just brought up, it does not make sense. Really, it doesn't. And then number 30, I mean, it makes it even worse. Remember how the unbelievers planned against you, but the best of planners is Allah. No, this cannot be. Allah cannot be a good planner if the unbelievers can plan against you, and if everything, just as Thunder just pointed out, everything is working against you. Why are there people dying in the Mediterranean if this is Allah's plan? And here he is saying he has great bounty and reward, and you should be grateful and everything. And then it says, this is the best plan? This is the best plan that a God can come up with? I'm sorry, this is atrocious. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is feeble. This is a total display of incompetence.
I mean, when you think about it, that means that Allah has planned that the Muslim world, from Muhammad's death forward,
Exactly.
have become the most uneducated people, the ones with the least amount of capita, or producing capita countries, that they've got the most amount of poverty, the most amount of uneducation. And also, when you look on the world scene between Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, and Sikhism, and all the other religions, and including atheism, if you want to put that in there as well, Islam seems to garner the most hatred and contempt and reaction. So Allah hasn't really blessed anybody with following this religion in any way at all moving forward.
I mean, you guys are very educated, and you guys have some understanding about Islam. You guys don't need to be reminded of this, but I will say it anyways. Muslims believe in one God. We don't have a dualism, right? So everything comes from God. The good, the bad, the bounty, the wrath, the misfortune. This all in the end emanates from God, and is part of God's plan. So I mean, I find it very humbling and sincere, Rob, that you care about Muslim lives, and thank you very much. But at the same time, the West is doing very well, and this is part of God's bounty in the eyes of a Muslim. And what's happening to Muslims around the world should be perceived as part of God's wrath for whatever reason. I don't know God's plans or his,
Smart
what
cat.
motivates God. I don't know what motivates God, but I see it from this
Smart
lens.
cat. But for Smart cat, when I was brought up as a Muslim, this is one of the arguments I actually had with my dad, right? Though he wasn't really a Muslim, in fairness to him, he was actually more communist than he was a Muslim. That being said, when those Islamic conversations used to come up, that would be exactly what I said when I used to listen to the Muslim community moan about the decadent West and the Zionist plot in the Middle East and all the arguments in defense of the PLO and this, that, and the other. And my argument used to be with them, well, if it's part of Allah's plan, are you not going against Allah's plan if this is the way it's all been designed and worked out from when Allah spoke to the pen or when the pen spoke to Allah? If this is all part of some divine decree, you're actually arguing against the decree of Allah.
Yeah, but
so why moan and have protests about things that Allah has decreed?
Okay, we say, right? Muslims say the metaphysics of Muslims is that God's hand was involved in the creation of man, Adam, and he blew life into Adam. So we have a special relationship with God. We are directly connected to God. So we manifest God's plans. We manifest his mercy. We manifest his wrath. We manifest his bounty. So I don't see the contradiction that you see.
So when
this can be the beginning of a huge, big discussion, which goes along the lines of the principles of Islam, along the principles of belief. And this is a huge topic on its own. Maybe we should schedule this as a topic to understand what it is that drives you and why it drives you and why you accept these things. This would be a fundamental discussion. I don't think we should have this here and now. If you disagree, tell me, then we're not going to do the video and then we're just going to have a discussion. But I don't know if this is such a good idea, or unless, I don't know, Smart Cat, do you want a discussion on the fundamentals of this?
I'm going with the flow right now, Rob. I mean, people are happy, I'm happy.
That's why we love you. Okay. All right, then let's leave it for now. Let's do the video. And then when you feel like it, you let us know when you want to be challenged on this belief that you have. And then we can do that. Because I think you're more than capable of addressing this and answering this, where a lot of other Muslim apologists can't. So anyway, then we're going to continue with the video, which, I mean, we're spoiled for choice, really. There's so many videos that you can do at the moment. It's crazy. They're coming out every day now, and then a couple of them. And this one has been picked up. I mean, I've addressed this like a month ago when it was just fresh on the market. And it's a girl who has somehow been convinced that she's a Muslim, and you can see she's a Muslim immediately, of course. The thing is that she brings 10 misconceptions about Islam. Now, the video is quite long, so we wouldn't be able to do it all in one shot. But what I'm going to do is I don't want to address every sentence the way we normally do it. We just want to address the different points that she's bringing up, okay? So please, I will stop after each point. So we don't do this interrupt me at every sentence, but every point. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, is this the Wandering Quinn you're about to bring up?
Yes.
Okay.
Why?
When I watched her, I just was, how can I describe this? I was overcome with rage and frustration.
Yes.
And I'm not normally an aggressive person, but I found myself practicing front kicks, snap punches, in just sheer the contempt. I have nothing but contempt because every word of it has obviously she's got no education in Islam, and I felt when I was watching this, there is a 1.7 billion market out there, and that you're trying to tap into the market. And I think the apostate prophet made the same. I think it's a natural conclusion to draw when you understand that the workings and the earnings people have on YouTube, that there is a great money base now of earning out of YouTube. And I just felt that this was a cynical move on her part to be a Caucasian woman, to come on YouTube, speak positively about Islam, and it's going to be a great money earner. Yeah,
Well,
here she is.
and she is active. She is modifying very actively the video to suit the taste, and it's being, of course, lapped up by many Muslims, a lot of which, whom is it, which or whom, are actually commenting on what she looks like. So this is quite funny. Just because they see a girl where you can see the neck and you can see the hair, they're automatically in ecstasy. So this is quite weird. Okay, so I'm going to play the points, and then I'm going to stop at the end of each point. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
I think we're okay.
Just to let
Hello,
everybody know, Smart Cat says that he's got low battery, so he might drop out. So if Smart Cat, if you do drop out, hopefully you'll come back soon.
No, I'm good. It's just I don't know how long it will take before I drop out.
Don't you have a bicycle with a dynamo that you can hook it up with?
Hello, salam alaikum, and welcome to this video. And if you are not a Muslim and you are wondering what...
Okay, I need to interrupt quickly, because this is something that we need to, I don't know, we need to address this at some stage. What is happening is people are so shit scared of coming to the Gin and Tonic show. They've made their own sort of little reply to atheist show at the same time as the Gin and Tonic show, and you know, this gives them the excuse, well, we can't come on the Gin and Tonic show because we have our own show, and the people from the Gin and Tonic show are not supposed to be on the Gin and Tonic show because they have to listen to our show. So this is so lame. This is so unbelievably... oh, this is so crazy. Okay, but we can go there afterwards or watch this later. But the thing is, it's a Dawah thing, so it's censored. So you can't say what you want, and you can't participate anyway. So, yeah. Okay, let's continue with this. But thanks for letting us know.
What Assalamu alaikum means, then it means peace be upon you. It is a greeting that Muslims use for one another, because I do hope that some non-Muslims are watching this video, because it is a very important topic. Now, just to introduce myself, if you don't know me, then my name is Ellie. I am from the UK. I am a travel blogger and tour organizer by profession now, and I became a Muslim a couple of months ago. So I'm using this YouTube platform that I have to talk about Islam and really clear up a lot of the misconceptions around Islam. So people know that it's really not a religion that they may have heard of, all the negative things that they've heard. And also because some people, they want to become Muslim, like myself, they're researching, but there are also some negative things that they've heard, and I want to use this video to clear those things up. So if that sounds like what you're interested in, then keep on watching. And let's start with the most obvious misconception, just to get it out the way, that Muslims are terrorists. Now, this is of course not true. It is true that Islam is a religion of peace. Now, unfortunately, there are bad people all over the world, and it just so happens that when they are Muslim, it is highlighted in the media, so people think it is always Muslims. It's interesting, when other deaths occur anywhere else around the world, do they point out their religion? No, they do not. I don't know, the media have got something against Islam. My opinion is that the media just needs us to remain in fear. It needs us to remain in fear, to listen to what the governments are saying. And right now, Islam is the best way to keep people scared. And so that's what they're focusing on. But I did just want to clear that up and just say it because as number one, because it is the most terrible misconception. And it's just not true. If you really think that, then I suggest to go to a Muslim area near where you live, have some food, talk to the people, and you will realize that this is not the case. The second misconception.
Yeah, I mean, she's totally naive, she's a simple girl, okay? She doesn't really think about things. She doesn't really wonder about anything. She doesn't question. She doesn't realize that we're not talking about Muslims. We're talking about an ideology. There is no other ideology on this planet at the moment that tells people to do these things and people listen. There is no other ideology at the moment where people go and commit atrocities holding this book in the hand at the same time. And this is the difference. And this is something that she simply does not understand. She thinks it's all about the media, and the media is somehow criticizing Muslims, which I don't understand.
I think she's also looking at the people and thinking when she says go to a Muslim area and eat some of their food, she's conflating Islam and the people, and that this is what the teachings and manifesto of Muhammad and Allah are, and that's not true, as we all know. The Quran, Islam is defined by the Quran and Hadith, not by the people and the food you eat.
And she should definitely watch the series, the ISIS series by the Masked Arab, and that in itself will debunk the very first.
Okay, I would like to say one thing. I don't think you guys are giving her credit that she did her research. I mean, I'm pretty sure she had those questions before she converted. Like I would be shocked, but we don't have evidence to say that she didn't do this or she did this. But I'm just saying.
Well, we had the guy doing Dawah in the street last week. What information do you think that the English guy, the Catholic, was asking before he became a Muslim with Dawah is easy last week?
When this guy makes a video talking about his conversion, then we can address it. But we're talking about this lady, which is obviously she took the time to learn about the religion. Maybe she didn't take all the time in the world to satisfy your criteria or the criteria on this panel or on this show, but she had a criteria, and I'm pretty sure she asked, what about the Muslims that commit atrocities across the world? Maybe the Dawah guy said, oh, it's all media manipulation, that's why she's saying it. Or maybe the Dawah guy said, look, there are problematic Muslims in the world, but they don't represent everybody. Either or could be a possibility. Or the possibility that you guys are putting up, that she never asked these questions, she's absolutely naive, is also a possibility. I'm not taking that away, but you guys also have to look at it from the other perspectives that I brought up.
Like, again, what we're saying is she's kind of confusing Islam and Muslims. And the topic, what she's talking about is 12, like, what is it? The number of the misconceptions of Islam. So, like, it's very difficult when, like, it gets very confusing when people kind of like blur the lines between the believer and the belief system. And these two should be clearly separated. But she's not talking about Islam, she's talking about Muslims. So this is where the first point kind of falls flat.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, your beliefs influence your actions. There's no doubt about it. I was actually arguing with one of my Muslim friends. He's trying to tell me that ISIS is not Muslim. I agree to him to some extent, but I was like, bro, they read the Quran and they read the Hadith, and they're committing these atrocities in the name of Hadith and Sunnah, Allah and His Messenger, right? So they're committing these crimes and saying Allahu Akbar, So we gotta recognize that, right? So I mean, but there's also many Muslims. There's also many Muslims around the world that do tremendous acts of charity. They're extremely kind to their neighbors, and that's because of Quran and Sunnah. I mean, it's you guys can't take it away. The thing is.
Sorry, Smart Cat, but I think you're
I want to hear what you
but when you start talking about the good deeds of Islam, I mean, there is no good deeds written in Origin of the Species, but atheists do good work as well. They do. In fact, when you look at the atheist, pound for pound, atheists probably do more good work for humanity than the entire Muslim world, because the difference between the atheists and the Muslims are Muslims only help Muslims out, whereas atheists or non-Muslims, they have set up organizations and bodies, NGOs and quasi-non-autonomous organizations in order to aid everybody without partiality, whereas the charities you're talking about only aid Muslims. And you don't have to be a Muslim to do good. Okay. Well, I would love to have that discussion. Maybe Stubbs can arrange that one as well.
So, Smart Cat, on your point.
Okay, do we have Rob? Rob, do you have an opinion on what she's been saying so far?
Give her a one-way ticket and send her to Saudi Arabia and ask her to write a will first.
Yeah, I think she's cherry picking. Of course, you can find something in there that's, with a particular context, and you can find some unpleasant stuff. The point is that it claims to be the perfect religion, and all we need is one bad thing in there to claim that it's not good. So in regards to it, I think the claim, if I heard it correctly, was about terrorism. Was that the right one?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, it doesn't say terrorism per se, but it does say fight the unbeliever. And if you think you're in a war, then you're going to use any means necessary to fight, right? So, and
No,
you know,
there's
the
a
fact that
dozen
we've
sentences on terror.
Say again?
There's a dozen sentences all on terror.
Okay.
I've been made victorious with terror. War is deceit.
I think what they're going to claim, though, those verses, whatever they say, I mean, bring it up stops. I'm anticipating that a Muslim would probably say, well, those verses don't say that you need to go out there and be a terrorist. It's probably like drive terror into the hearts of the disbelievers, which Allah's going to do anyway. So presumably they're going to say, well, that verse doesn't mean that you have to be a terrorist.
Yeah, 100%, Rob.
Strange how this book that is so made clear, so easy to understand, is the very thing that isn't made clear or easy to understand when you're having to ask Muslims 1400 years later to tell you what these words mean in a modern context.
Look, this is what I say. It's the text is the text, okay? And then there's people's desires, people's faults, and they superimpose their desires and faults onto the text. Okay, so
but they're doing it exactly the same way in no matter what language and what culture or what country or what color they are. They're doing it in exactly the same way for the past 1400 years.
No, lies, absolutely lies.
Okay, so we have the same problems. We have the same problems with Muslim communities all over the world. There isn't a community on.
Today we have a global phenomenon, and that's political Islam that is committed to terrorism to achieve its goals. This is a modern phenomenon, okay? And it's not representative of Islamic history for the past 1300 years.
Okay.
So the Smart Cat, when they were doing what's the word, offensive wars across North Africa, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, what was that? Was that them bringing peace and just bringing, the word of God? Or were they slaughtering and taking over people that weren't attacking them? Or were those all bad Muslims? They weren't following Muhammad's example.
Okay. The Muslim narrative is that these lands were opened up. Okay? These lands were opened up because they were closed to Muslims. All right? In the process of opening up these lands, military operations took place. And in any military operation, there are casualties and collateral casualties. So this is the perspective that the Muslims take about these wars. They were not wars of forced conversion. They were military operations.
Were any of those people in North Africa, Eastern or Southern Europe attacking Muslims?
No. The North Africans invited.
So why didn't they leave them? Why didn't they leave them alone?
The North Africans invited the Muslims.
I'm not sure that's the case. I'm sure.
What about India? What about North India?
Was
that an invite too? Yeah, was it an invite? Yeah. So like we're having a party, come on over.
The Sindh region accepted Islam, and they fought northern India. The Sindh region. You know the Sindh region?
That was an invasion by Muhammad bin Qasim. They weren't invited. That was an invasion.
Islam reached India through merchants.
No, it was Indonesia. It was Indonesia. It reached through merchants, not India. It was Indonesia.
There was Hindu nobility converted to Islam. Okay, Hindu nobility converted to Islam, became Muslim, and they are the ones that started this quote-unquote conquest of India.
my last comment on this, before otherwise I'd get too involved. My last comment: Smart Cat, where are you getting your Islamic history from? It sounds like you're getting your Islamic history from Muslims and not actual history that you'd find, say, in secular sources.
So you're saying I'm wrong? You're saying my sources are wrong because they're Muslim? That's an accusation I would like to push back on.
Okay.
They may be Muslim, they may be secular, they may be academically inclined, but what I'm saying is true. It's historically accurate.
Okay.
There was wars, but it's not the wars that you imagine it to be.
So how different were they?
Well, we have to be in particular. I mean, which ones you want to talk about, we could talk about.
Can you explain to me how did Islam...
Guys, let's not go into too much detail here. Again, this is another discussion. It's all interesting. I grant you this. It's everything great. But if we go off on every single tangent, we're going to spend all the time only on tangents.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this is just an example of terror in the Quran. Okay, there's like, I don't know, 20, 30 examples of how terror is being used in the Quran. So it doesn't mean that this says, please terrorize other people. But it says there, fill the hearts of infidels with terror. Chapter 8, 12.
Could you do me a favor? Just make the text a little bigger for my screen.
I don't know if I can.
It's okay. Yeah, perfect. Nice.
So it says there, okay, now I need to move this because I can't see the, okay, like this should be. So if you go to 8:12, what does it say? Fill the hearts of infidels with terror. So that, in my eyes, means go and terrorize them. And look at the next one. You may strike terror in the enemies of God. What does that tell you?
What does it tell me?
Yes.
I mean, these texts are very, very organized, but they're very cherry-picked. You know as well.
Of course they are. I'm trying to make a point, of course.
I know. But just because you show me a sharp knife doesn't mean I have evil intent with it. Okay?
Well, that's what it says there. If it says you may strike the knife into the enemies of God, what does that tell you?
Well, how do you view it? Do you view it as an individual going out of their way killing non-Muslims?
Yeah, of course I do.
Well, that's not the view that I take it as. I would call that person that's a criminal. That's a murderer.
Yeah, but his God is telling. He is telling the Muslims, fill the hearts of infidels with terror. What does that mean?
I can't tell you exactly what it means, but for me to make it, no, hold
smart
up. For me to make it,
you can't say what it means, but you certainly know what it doesn't mean. You can't say what it does mean, you just don't know what it doesn't mean.
No, hold up. From what I'm seeing, as I explain it to you guys, if Muslims are engaged in a struggle with non-Muslims, it seems to me that God is telling the Muslims, you may use psychological warfare against your opponents. This is what it seems like to me.
Okay, so why would you want to do that?
Why would you want to be defeated?
Well, no. You need to look at this in context. We just read the sentences where it says that God, the all-powerful God, is going to help you, is going to support you, is going to do all these things for you. Why would a Muslim human being have to go and use terror against a non-Muslim human being?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you're framing it that way, I would agree with you. That's criminal. That's illegal. That's murderous. That's terrorism. Okay, but in the context of independent peoples struggling over one another, this is warfare. Okay, so you're basically saying because you're Muslims, you are not allowed to use psychological warfare.
It's not
This is what you're
psychological
essentially saying.
warfare. Smart cat. Terror is not psychological warfare. Please don't do. Come on. Be realistic. What you're doing now is being quite silly. You can't equate silly things like psychological warfare with terror.
Well, hold up,
Terror is
hold up.
very distinct.
Yeah, no, most definitely, it's an emotion. Terror is an emotion. It's a tremendous amount of fear.
No, it's not. Come on, I'm
What is it?
using psychological warfare at the moment, but I'm not terrorizing anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to point number. I don't think we will go beyond point 2 today. I think because there's so many interesting stuff here, so things here that you can talk about.
Is that Muslims and Islam are the same thing. Now, even at the start of this year, just like 10 months ago, I was wondering, what is a Muslim and what is Islam? And the difference is that Islam is the religion, and Muslims are the people that follow the religion of Islam. The term Muslim is actually an Arabic word for submitter. So Muslims are submitters to God, to Allah. And another thing is that God in Arabic is Allah. So actually, even Christian Arabs still use the word Allah. That's another little 2.1 misconception. Because a lot of people think that the actual term Allah is just for Islam, and it's actually not. It's an Arabic word. So no matter what faith people are, if they speak Arabic, then they will use the term Allah, because that means God in Arabic. Now, the reason I'm talking about this point is because, again, going back to negative things people may have heard, you've really got to separate the two. So we cannot judge the religion of Islam by what Muslims do. And there's also something else, just quickly, is that some Muslims are not even practicing Muslims. So I myself would say I am a practicing Muslim. I wouldn't have become Muslim to not be a practicing Muslim. That means that I pray 5 times a day. I'm going to fast when it comes around. And I'm trying to live my life according to the Koran and the Hadiths and the examples that our Prophet, peace be upon him, left for us. But there are other people who are born into the religion of Islam, just like Christianity, just like Hinduism, and they do not actually, they don't practice Islam. So we can't judge their behavior as the whole of the religion. The third
Right. First of all, the word Allah. I mean, that's a whole argument in itself as to whether what that word means or if it's a name or not, because it was a name pre-Arab, because it was the name of the moon god. Then it becomes a word for God, and now many Muslims will argue that it is the name of God, going back to its pre-Arab identity. So what she's saying there, that is a whole subject in itself.
So I will.
And you'll find as well, if it's supposed to be following on from the God of the Jews and the Christians, the Tetragrammaton represents the 4 Hebrew consonants for the name of God, which can be pronounced Yahweh or Jehovah. So why is it then that the word Jehovah or Yahweh is not featured once in the Quran, yet in the Hebrew text it sits there 6,973 times, and in the Christian Greek scriptures it's referenced 275. So this is a discussion in itself that Muslims need to respond to. And now that she's a Muslim, I'm looking forward to her response.
And I'll give her the first point where she says that Muslims and Islam are like these are separate entities. So I'll give her that. Like, okay,
yeah,
something.
But that goes back to what I've said for many years on the show. The Quran and Hadith define Islam, not Muslims. So what she's saying there is bang on point. If you want to know what Islam is, you go to the Quran and Hadith. You don't go to Muslims, which kind of contradicts what she said earlier on, I'm sure, where she says if you want to understand Islam, you go to a Muslim area and go and eat some food. Now she's saying something completely kind of like different. Sounds like she's contradicting herself.
Yeah, it's like she's confusing a religion with a culture. But
yeah.
The next point, she's like distinguishing between the followers of the belief system. So this is what I found very interesting. Any other thoughts?
Rob, you want to weigh in, or?
No, I think enough's been said there.
Okay, because I think that if a Muslim takes instructions from Islam, then you can definitely see what Islam tells a Muslim to do. If a if an ideology tells people to be peaceful, not to ever harm anyone, not to hurt or damage anything, then the followers will not do that. But to say that a Muslim is not commanded to do that is ludicrous, because it tells you in the Quran all the time, you need to do that. You can't have Christians as friends. You don't have to do that. You have to kill that. You're allowed to do that. So I think the behavior of Muslims is actually dictated to a large extent by what Islam teaches. So I think it is one contributing factor. If Islam wouldn't exist or would be a benevolent ideology, we wouldn't see the behavior of Muslims that we do.
I'm sure now that she's become a Muslim, she's all too well aware that before she became a Muslim, she had equal standing with a man in any religion or faith or political environments. Now she doesn't. She's only worth half of that of a man. Her husband can now have up to 4 wives, assuming that he's a Muslim. Well, assuming that she is she's married. That if she walks in front of her husband or a man, that annuls the prayer, because dogs and donkeys and women that walk in front of men annul prayer. So she's basically equal to a dog or a donkey. And that most of the women in Islamic hell, most of the people in Islamic hell are actually women. So I'm sure she would have taken all this knowledge on before she converted, yeah?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. She will definitely not have any of this. I mean, look at the dismissive behavior that most men who are misogynistic have towards women. It's not because they are sadists or something, no, because they have been indoctrinated by the Quran, which tells them it is perfectly okay to do this. So I think there is some sort of influence. It cannot be everything, I agree, but there is a factor definitely there which does influence people by Islam. So, okay, I think we can do one more.
Misconception is that Islam is for Arabs or Eastern countries, and it is not for white Western people like me. That is not true. Yes, Islam started in Arabia, it started in the Middle World, and then it spread. And it did happen to spread to obviously those other Middle Eastern countries, Northern Africa. It did also make its way to Eastern countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia has the most Muslims per country in the world. I'm reading a really good book right now, and it's talking about the history of Islam. And I think a lot of people don't realize is that Spain has a huge Islamic history in there as well. So Islam did come to Europe. The point that I'm trying to get to is that it is not just an Arab religion. It is not just an Eastern religion, an Asian religion, an African religion. Anyone can be Muslim. That's why I became a Muslim. And I think it's quite confusing for, like, maybe my family thought it was confusing when I said I'm a Muslim, because it's a very foreign religion to a lot of people in Western countries. And that's just the case. It is. But that does not mean that we cannot be Muslims. Another point on this is that not all Arabs are even Muslim. There are Arab Christians, there are Arab Jews. So the idea that Islam is just an Arab religion is also ridiculous, because not even all Arabs are Muslim. The fourth
Right, it's interesting because most Arab Christians and Jews are under heavy persecution by Muslims. She doesn't want to discuss how it's. I know it's not the point. I know it's not the point. But if you're going to turn around and say that, oh, you could be Arab Christian, Arab Jew, yeah, you could be. But let's look at the persecution that they're under and who by. Then she's talking about the spread of Islam. She's not mentioning actually it was spread by the sword. She's mentioning Spain, because obviously that would have been the selling point of Islam in Spain, the Andalusian period. And she talks this in Malaysia, because Malaysia had pretty much a soft takeover because of the commercial activity. I think the king or one royal member of a family became a Muslim, and that pretty much led society to go that way. Pretty much when a regime takes over a country, then pretty much people follow that identity, like communism as an example.
Yeah, but don't you think that she's addressing a strawman, that nobody is actually making this point?
No, of course she is. Of course she is. But then when you're trying to advance Islam, strawman is all you've got.
Okay, anyone else?
Doesn't there's a lot of like what I see, at least with Islamic texts, there seems to be some form of Arab supremacism as well in the, at least like there are, it's not, I'm not sure if it's explicitly stated, but there does seem to be some form of Arab, supremacy, in the sense that our Arabic is the language of God. So I can only communicate with this God if I speak in Arabic. And I need to learn Arabic to understand everything about Islam in detail, and then I get to critique it. Otherwise, I have no right to critique it.
But Mustafa, you grew up as a Muslim as I did, and you're talking about Arab supremacism. Is there not a caste system in Islam as well? Like the Arabs sit at the top, then the Pakistanis and underneath, and then then it sort of goes all the way down. So like right at the bottom, you get the Bengali and the Gujarati.
I actually even learned that in Islamia class, apparently, that
there you go.
In Caliph Umar, actually, specifically decreed, I'm not sure if Muhammad also, like I may have decreed this as well, that, the, what do you call it, the non-Arab cannot have an Arab working under them, but the non-Arab has to work under the Arab. So I did learn this in Islamia class, and which is what I found very interesting, that, this is discrimination. I didn't say it at anything out loud, but that was when, and I was only 13, 14 at that time, and those bells started to ring, that this is kind of a supremacist.
Yeah, so even when the marriages are taking place, you do not find, say, a Pakistani marrying a Bengali. You don't find a Bengali marrying a Gujarati, and none of them will marry a black African Muslim. It does not happen, or very, 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 very rarely does it happen. But am I right or wrong on that?
No, you are correct. And
absolutely. But people find it hard. But Mustafa, even people listening to this show find it very hard to believe that actually takes place, because they look at certain situations in, say, Europe, where say a Pakistani woman has married a white man, and I'm thinking, no, that's a very isolated case. That's not the norm, because when you go to these other countries, they just do not allow it over in those countries, and there's that indoctrination of a caste system, of an Islamic caste system, of the Arabs sits at the top, then the Pakistanis, and then so forth. And as I've said, at the bottom you got the Gujaratis and the Bengali Muslims.
And even in the Gulf countries, if you notice, most of their employees, they prefer hiring either people of Sri Lankan, Malayali descent, in like South Indian descent. They used to hire Pakistanis, but then, they kind of found out that Pakistanis and Afghanis, they're also a bit more rebellious, so they stopped. But they do consider them lesser beings. But they see them as a threat as well. So they can't. And then it's the other way around, where in Pakistan there's this weird, worshipping your colonial masters mindset, where Arabia or Saudi Arabia and even Iran by some Shia Muslims in Pakistan are raised to this weird pedestal. There is this, Middle Eastern dominance. And, to the extent that Pakistan does not want to identify itself almost as South Asian anymore. So there's these weird, like, and sure, you can make the argument that Pakistan was technically, half of it was Persian, but that's another discussion entirely. But yes, there is this weird Arab worship, or seeing Arab as like the top on the card, and then, the Pakistanis follow.
Yeah, because she's talking about it, she's presenting it as this sort of multicultural religion that's sort of like that hasn't any prejudices against color, culture, or nation, tribe, people, or tongue. And yet the reality is, as you know as well as I do, it's endemic within the Islamic religion of prejudices on nation, tribe, color, tongue. It has its own caste system.
Definitely. I think, I agree with you on that one. It's actually like, what do you call it? Sure, you can have converts of any race, particularly, but, it's not explicit, but it's also explicit. It's this weird, and you will sense undertones of it as well.
Yeah, I think from the Islamic point of view, if you have this mentality, well, if you've got a black person, white person, yellow person converted into Islam, then it must be true.
Right.
Look, these people are converted. That's the kind of like conflation that they have. That the colors of people, the cultures of people, and the backgrounds and education standard of people. That, well, it must be true if these people are coming to Islam.
Yeah, no, and there is some, and then there is some, like, racial preferences, at least for this Allah, because he sends.
Well, you've only got to look at an Islamic sort of like Dawah channel like Peace TV as an example, and you'll find most of the presenters on there are if they're not brown skinned presenters, i.e. sort of like from India, Pakistan, or Saudi Arabia, then they tend to be Caucasian. Very few are black, and only one sort of like Indian, Oriental guy, Hussein Yi. Whereas most of them are brown and then white. One or two black novelty guys, I used to call them.
So I've seen some white Wahhabis on there as well, strangely enough. But the biggest star of Peace TV, both Peace TV regular, Bangla, or any other language, is Zakir Naik. And,
yeah.
He's basically the biggest, what do you call it? He has this, what do you call it? He's very deceptive because he uses the Arabic as his best argument, like the Arabic, and he's talking to a non-Arab audience. And what you've noticed is that Arabs of other religions and like atheists and Christians, when they hear him, they're like, he's blatantly lying to his audience. He is legitimately lying. So you can kind of see, like, even the Arabic itself is used as a sort of like a cover up as well. Like, it's like this weird shield that.
And you can see that with this girl, the Wandering Quinn, that's probably where she got her Islamic education from. She was probably given a few DVDs from the local halal shop, and somebody came around and tuned in a satellite to receive Peace TV.
Probably, yeah. It's probably from.
Sounds like it.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
Are we all in unison here? Amazing. I think Rob's gone to sleep. Then what we're going to do is shall we do one more? Yeah, let's do one more. Come on, let's be adventurous.
Misconception is that Islam is forced upon people, which is definitely not the case. I can confirm as a revert Muslim that I was not forced into Islam at all. So hopefully that's one good example. The second good example is that, like I said, Islam spread. And if Islam was forced on people, then countries would be 100% majority Muslim. A good example of this is India. There are a lot of Muslims in India. It has the second most highest amount of Muslims in the country, even though they only represent about 15% of the country. Now, if people were forced into Islam in the past, then that percentage would be much higher. People were not forced into Islam. It was a choice, and it still is. Number 5.
Right, that is just blatant historical. They did not go. Islam did not spread from Saudi Arabia like Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on each door with the Koran in hand and a couple of flipping a watchtower or awake equivalents. No. They didn't do that. Islam spread with the sword. Monumental lie there.
Oh, yeah, this one's a blatant. This is a blatant lie. The fourth point that she makes is that Islam was not for Islam. Islam is not forced. That's her point, but it is actually true. Islam was forced when the empire was expanding from Mecca / Petra all over the Arabian Peninsula, and then through like 3 continents. It expanded like through military might. It was never like there's. To this day, there are forced conversions, and even Haris Sultan and many ex-Muslim pages have been pointing out there are forced conversions that happen to this day. There are young girls kidnapped and forced converted to Islam, like young Christian girls, young Hindu girls, and then forced married to a man, forced converted to Islam. And then
there wasn't there one recently, Mustafa, in Pakistan, where it was a young girl and she ended up forced marrying a man that was in the 40s, and the parents couldn't do anything about it because she'd now got married.
Yes, and then there has been an entire Supreme Court, like actually not, it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet, but it is going in litigation, and there has been a big uproar about this in Pakistan, and this case might be the deciding point. It may either, like, for now, my biggest fear is the judges swaying in favor of the kidnappers, but I feel like this might change things. I see some glimmer of hope that at least the judicial system might take a stand against this form of forced conversion, that is kidnapping and forced marriages.
Well, the thing is, you see, even in this country, they've had to define kidnapping laws in England because of the number of girls that were taken against their will or unbeknown to them over to foreign countries like Pakistan and India, not realizing their parents were taking them over to get married.
Absolutely. This is
so kidnapping laws have had to be defined in this country as a result.
Absolutely. There have been and in Pakistan, like, we've seen like, just because the like, not only like there have been kidnappings, but also like if and all else fails, then they go to honor killings.
Yeah.
If all else fails, and legally speaking, in a country like Pakistan, honor killings can be used as a defense for murder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because you can cite apostasy. You can cite apostasy as the justification for honor killing.
And not only that, not necessarily even apostasy, but more like, the respect and all. And because there was an actress who was killed by her brother, and then he tried to use the defense of honor killing, and which is unfortunate, because like what we discovered during the discovery, what was found out, that he did it mainly for the money. It was more a property issue rather than actual honor, because she had been doing this for so many years, and she was considered the Kim Kardashian of Pakistan at that time. So she was, of course, she's we're going to be more exotic and all that stuff, and that's show business. That's part of it.
And then this is where people like this Wandering Quinn, she's doing, she doesn't realize the damage that she's doing, because not only is she selfishly trying to drum up more subscribers to increase her revenue and tapping into the Muslim audience, but by trying to justify Islam in this completely ignorant way, it's just setting people who are trapped in Islam back. For those who are trying to get away from Islam, like the girls that are trying to get away from Islam, that are having to make those big decisions of walking out on family, walking out on friends, and walking out on community, and just going into an environment that they're alien to get away from all of this. And then you get people like the Wandering Quinn coming into the equation and just making out Islam is not the things that we all know that it truthfully is. She's doing damage, and she doesn't realize it in her ignorance.
Now, keep in mind, the audience she's tapping into is just the type of audience that's looking for confirmation bias, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's playing on it, and she knows it.
And that's usually I've seen the tendency with, especially with like, a majority of theists, specifically Muslims, that there seems to be this confirmation bias, and then there's no, like, they would actually like have this knee-jerk reaction to any form of criticism, especially like there was even amongst Muslims, they wouldn't stand any form of criticism. Like, there have been Muslim reformists who have been trying to reform Islam, which I have read about as well, and the biggest thing is, yes, there's the confirmation bias, as well as they've even stated the fact that we have to acknowledge that nothing is perfect. Our religion is not perfect. We have to acknowledge history. We have to see this from a critical standpoint, and we have to acknowledge that the founder was not perfect either. So yeah.
So the thing is, one has to be careful of the word reform, because when we're looking at the word reformist, right, it's normally taken from the point of view that the religions of Christendom had a reformation, but that reformation was based on the fact that most people started to be able to read and write now, and had access to the books, and realized that what the churches were teaching were not exactly inside the scriptures. So that's where the Reformation came from. They went back to what the scriptures actually teach, and not what the organizations or denominations were teaching. The problem you've got with Islam is it can't be reformed. I've had this discussion with Stops a couple of times. How can you? If the Quran defines what Islam is, then what you're going to have to do is start picking at it like salt out of pepper. Then what part of Islam have you got left when you've taken out all the bits that you do like and what you don't like, and separated it from what you don't like?
Yeah, and this is where they'll have to, and this is like, this is where the reformers might have to will come across basically this dilemma itself. And there's another atheist, even Aaron Ra, who he talked to Ridwan as well, the apostate prophet, and he stated that he's even met a Christian priest and he's met some Muslims, and they've said that they know that it's, this cannot be real, but there's this concept of fake it till you make it, like there's convince yourself, like, no, there is some element of truth to it. Like even with Shia Islam, for example, because the Islam we see today is mostly Sunni Islam, but from a Shia standpoint, you can kind of make an argument where you can say that, oh, this is allegorical. For example, like right hand possession in the right hand possessions are not seen as slaves, but rather the muta system, which is the temporary marriage. So that's the differing interpretation of the Shia scholars. And then there's also a list of Shia scholars who do agree in at least the Shia narrative that, it was not compiled by Muhammad, but rather, was compiled later, and there is man-made errors in there's a lot of, so they acknowledge that aspect of this. And that's why even there have been, at least with Shia Muslims in the 16th and 17th century, they did go through a sort of kind of a reformation, but I feel like it wasn't good enough, like Allama Majlisi during the time of the Safavid period, even though they did some forced conversions, but then later they had to rewrite some books, and they had to create different they even created more hadith as well, like the Bihar al-Anwar, which was the basically it's like the Sahih Muslim of the Shia community in around the 17th century. And so there was, again, from a Shia standpoint, you can make that reformist argument, not so much for Sunni Islam though.
But just going back to this Wandering Quinn, for me, she doesn't realize how much damage she's doing by doing this.
Definitely.
Yeah, but she's appealing to, equally simple, equally naive people. So anybody who thinks a little bit will immediately realize, oops, there's a problem. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So I'm not sure that there's actually so much damage if you take the influence that these people have.
And keep in mind that the damage could be from the fact that, there will be ex-Muslims who will criticize their former way of life, and they will be shut down because of something like this. Like this is saying that, hey, you're
a hate speech,
stereotypical, you're being bigoted and blah blah blah. It's kind of like, it kind of adds a layer of
it gives credibility. It gives credibility to the argument that Islam's a religion of peace when you've got a Caucasian woman coming on the show saying, and then you've got people like Mustafa and myself, ex-Muslims, and we just sound like bitter trolls. And that's the damage it does as well.
Here we can see what happens. I mean, it says in the Quran very clearly, don't do that. And here's exactly the example where somebody just said a few centimeters further up, hatred is not going to give you any clear opinion or something. And here's exactly what he is demonstrating, how hatred influences you.
Another point I'll bring up is my biggest one of, and I've seen ex-Muslims would agree with me on this. The biggest criticism we've gotten is that we're appealing to our white overlords or our white masters, and we're racist. But now this white lady over here, when she says something, it's like, oh, it's goody, all goody, good. But like as a brown man, I'm leaving your religion, so that means worshiping white people. Like, this is so weird. And
Gora ban gaya na?
yeah, gora ban gaya basically. Gora bacha.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, then I think we're not going to do any more points. Rob, do you want to comment on this? Or I think he's watching what Sabua is doing on the other channel.
No, I'm not watching anything else. No, I'm fine. I think let's call it a day.
Yeah, let me go to the Hadith. No, because you're unusually quiet. That's why I thought, what the hell's wrong with poor Rob? Okay, what we're going to do now is quickly go to a Hadith, which is this one, which is narrated Abu Huraira, of course, and also Sa'id bin Khalid. Allah's Messenger was asked about the slave girl, if she was a virgin and committed illegal, I don't know what illegal is, sexual intercourse. So the Prophet said, if she committed illegal sexual intercourse, lash her. And if she did it a second time, then lash her again. And if she repeated the third time, then sell her, even for a hair rope. And Ibn Shihab said, I don't know whether to sell her after the third or the fourth offense. So this is how the things are happening, and you can see the reference. I don't need to repeat it.
What? So you beat her is it sex out of marriage or is it sodomy? Which one is it?
Well, the thing is, first of all, I don't understand what illegal sexual intercourse is for a slave girl. But if she does do that, then you lash her first time, second time, third time, and sell her or something, and they don't know whether to sell her after the third or fourth time. So this is the alternative.
Is it in Indonesia where they found a woman doing that? They had to give her 1,000 lashes, but they had to do it 50 at a time. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. Do you remember? There was a woman and she had to get 1,000 lashes, and they couldn't give her 1,000 lashes in one go, so they did it incrementally.
No, I've never heard of that. I mean, this is crazy, all right? Oh my goodness. Okay, this is what Sharia does to people. So there you go. All right. Again, clockwork. Closing comments. Rob, what do you want to say about this episode of the Gin and Tonic Show?
I'll leave it to everybody else. I think we've got enough panelists here. So let me leave the floor open to the other guys.
Mustafa?
This is my opportunity to say farewell to the audience, and I enjoyed the show, and hopefully we'll see you here next Friday.
Excellent stuff. And Allah Gorikol?
Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening. It's been a great show. I hope everybody has a lovely, pleasant weekend and stay safe.
And SmartCat, welcome back. You've found a new battery.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I just found my charger. Yes. Well, it was nice discussing everything with you guys, and we'll just save it for next week. Actually, I don't think I'll be available for next week because I got a course I got to start, but we'll pick up in the new year most definitely, and we will stay in touch and send the discourse link in the message.
Oh, I forgot about that. You see, when Rob is not doing these things, I'm not on the ball. And now I need to... Okay, it's in the description, actually. So I don't need to put it into the chat because... And Dave is not here. Oh, my goodness. You see, if you don't have people here, then you need to do everything, and then it goes wrong. Where do I have the link? Here we go. Juke. There's the link. Oh, made it just in time. So thank you very much to everybody, thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you very much to the chat. It's been a really interesting episode again. And I don't know, if you want to, we can continue with, what is it? Dancing Queen? No, what's it? Moving Quinn or something like that.
The Wandering Quinn.
Wandering Quinn, there you go. Then we shall take the rest of the points next time. So thank you guys, and if you still want to join us, come to Discord, and we can still talk about some more Islam. See you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.